where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out. From WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. Our episode, Friday Jobber, on the 24th of January, 2020. This is kind of an interesting event, a week, I guess you would say, that the Democrats are about to end their part of the impeachment inquiry. The House managers have summed up their case on the pertaining, I should say, to the two articles of impeachment of D.J. Trump. Now, we won't spend a lot of time on our broadcast talking about it, because you can hear analysis from thousands of pundits across networks. iHeart is carrying it, NPR is carrying it, etc. The gavel-to-gavel coverage of the hearings. And, of course, on Saturday, the GOP will start their part. What we will do here is a little bit of distinctive analysis. Beginning with the impeachment inquiry is a political process, although it has some of the trappings of a civil trial, but those are only some. The senators were sworn in. Supposedly they're not to use their mobile phones or move around, but yet some do move around. People just don't sit in one place for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Utterly impossible to do. Thus, from 12-hour sessions, they went down now to 8 or 9 hours. Too long from our perspective at this mic. Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, who was one of the more active proponents in the impeachment of William Jefferson Clinton in 1998, basically said this time around, now he had the opposite position in that particular time, but this time around the idea of over-litigating their position. And he claims that Democrats have over-litigated, and what will happen with the Republicans. Well, when you are litigating a case, it's a good idea if you're playing to a jury, particularly one that is sequestered, that you want to be as precise and as brief as possible. Now, you get into some trouble if you get into too many specifics, because that's not how human events are set up. They're not set up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or A, B, C, D, E, and F. They are asymmetrical, and therefore you have to set your case up in such a way, which the Democrats did, but they drug on, and the case was dragging and dragging. And that you don't want to do, because people remember things in basically swaps of memory, and you want to have those keywords in there. And in a telecast, these were basic presentations. Some used to call them PowerPoint, but they can be anything. And they were bullets type presentations that you'd have in a classroom with live video. We've done that before in presentations. We've done at developer conferences. In fact, one we did where we talked about open source and various things, diversity. We had a YouTube presentation from none other than DJ Trump, and a live presentation. Anyway, nonetheless, that is the way it is presented, and that is what the Democrats insist, that Trump is so dangerous he has to be removed now before the election could possibly get around to doing it, because the election was in November this year, and even if Trump were ousted by the voters, he would be around there until January. If he's not, well, he'll just be there 4 more years. So that is the situation, but it's a little bit more complex than that, since it is a political trial. There are Republicans in the Senate, including old man McConnell, that are up for re-election this year, and they could possibly be ousted, depending on the reaction of the public. When you look at national polls, you'll see that roughly 50-50, a little more than 50-50 are in favor of the impeachment, but less than 50% were in favor, the last poll I looked at, of actually ousting DJ Trump. But that would be the Republican types in the polls, and you have to look at those polls in terms of how many independents are there, how many Republicans, how many Democrats, how many liberals, etc., and sort of get a picture of where it is. But when you go to Tip O'Neill's, the former House Speaker, Thomas Tip O'Neill from Boston, that politics are local, are state. Well, all these variables play into it, and if you've noticed lately, Pompeo, the defense secretary now, I guess he is, or is he the state? He's at the State Department, Minister of Foreign Affairs, or what have you, and he had been at CIA, and before that he was a Congress type from Kansas. It was rumored that he would run for Senator Roberts' position. Senator Roberts is retiring. The last time on his re-election bid, he had to go and rest up a bit. Well, he's rested up, and he's going out to permanently rest up. But nonetheless, Pompeo is not running for that position. So if you start reading some of the tea leaves, you'll notice that quite a few Republicans that have been active, including the leader in the House of the Conservative Caucus, or what do you want to call that group of characters, is not running for re-election. And you go down the list, there are quite a few Republicans not running for re-election that have been around for several years and in leadership positions. So you have to sort of see, well, why are these people not running? Is it a situation that they'd have a tough election, are that they've decided that their usefulness in the Congress is over, and they move on to bigger and better things. Down the street to K Street and do some lobbying. That is usually what many of those people end up doing. So when we start looking at those situations, we see immediately what is sort of going on here. McConnell, of course, is up for re-election, and some others in key states. This is on the Republican side. Now, there are Democrats also that are retiring for various reasons. Most in state Democratic districts. Some Republicans that are retiring are in state Republican districts. Some are not in those districts. Like, for instance, in Kansas, Pompeo would have had a leg up, as they say, on the Senate election there, but Kansas has been sending out mixed signals. They now have a Democratic governor there, and they've had Democrats there before. The HEW secretary, I think, was it in Obama's administration? She had been the governor of Kansas. Anyway, so nonetheless, there are mixed signals coming out. Now, on the Republican side, evidently what they have leaked, their stratagem will be to focus on dodgy Biden, which dodgy has nothing to do with the phone call other than Trump saying that to investigate Dodgy and his father, Joe Lunchbox Biden, and he could get, he was talking to the Ukrainian president-elect, a former professional joker, that he could get a trip to the White House. And that was where he appeared in the scenario, and calling him as a witness. He could not say anything about the Trump call, period. But that's what they're dealing in, these kinds of witnesses that play to their base. And also they are talking about the Steele dossier. That was former MI5 super spy type, but put together a dossier. It was on the Russian involvement 2016 election and various things pertaining to Hillary the Monster Clinton. But again, these are the kinds of things that are totally irrelevant. They play to their base, and we look at it very carefully when they are playing to their base. Example was DJ Trump appeared live. No president has done that before. This group of anti-abortion group, pro-life group they call themselves, proclaiming himself as that's DJ Trump, the pro-life president. Well, he may be the pro-life president. He's not the pro-child president, denying children WIC, cutting back on that, cutting back on food sufficiency, and various other programs involving children. But nonetheless, he's playing to this crowd, and that's an evangelical crowd of characters out there. A lot of Catholic types were there, priests, nuns, etc. But there is division within the evangelical movement. The magazine Christianity Today put an editorial out against DJ Trump. And DJ Trump knows, and anyone's been to a goat roping contest, as LBJ would say, if you get into a situation where you lose even a quarter point, 25 points, or 0.25, or a half a point of a particular group, that does count. Specifically, if you're running I anticipate running a close race, as was in 2016, that you would lose you an election. So that is the reason, constantly playing to the base. That's what Trump has done, trying to keep his base together, whether it be on immigration, building the wall, whether it be on the pro-life, and various other issues that bring the base together, and also trying to keep the business community, those kinds of Republicans there, with promising more tax cuts, etc. Now the additional adding of nations to the nation hit list, we call it. Perhaps Nigeria, Uzbekistan, Nehemiah. These are just some that went in the press, but that will be out very, very quickly. And also next week, DJ will put out his Mideast plan. And that plan is what to do on the Palestinian question without the Palestinians. He's only working with the Zionists, a landmark of the administration. So in other words, that idea is twofold: to tie up the Mideast there, and at the same time try to cut into the Jewish vote in the U.S., the Zionist vote. So there are a lot of things DJ Trump, the Trump administration, is doing to try to maximize their turnout, plus as much voter suppression as they can literally get to. So those are events that are shaping this so-called impeachment gamut more than anything else. And the Republicans, of course, will be on the weekend on Saturday, and they'll take a break on Sunday. At least that's how the schedule. I'm not certain if they'll be there on Monday or not, but they'll have 2 more days, and then they get down to if they will call witnesses. The problem has always been with the Republicans, these so-called moderate Republicans like Collins, etc. Usually when it comes down to final votes, they vote with the majority, with the Republicans. In other words, Will Romney, he's already been wishy-washy and said he could go with the president set up when he did at one time, said he was open to some witnesses. So a lot is not expected there. The Democrats have 47 votes, but they will need 4 Republican votes. That's just to call witnesses. Will they get those? Perhaps not. It's not even 50-50 there. You have McCoskey. You have some that may be amenable. But then you have people like the libertarian Rand Paul, who talks a good game, but in the final analysis, he votes, generally speaking, with the Republican Party. So those are the problems that they face. So for the Democrats, the only thing they can do, since it's a political process, is see if they can put it into some of these races. That is it. Other than that, we'll be looking at the final polls to see where those final polls are going. Let's get some national news now. I think we talked about the coronavirus. It's international. That is a new virus similar to the SARS virus, which was in the early 2000s. At this point in time, over 600 people have been affected by the virus, and getting very close to 50 have died, including one of the doctors, ear, nose, and throat specialists treating people in the area heavily hit. But there have also been cases, 2, I believe, in the U.S., one out in the Seattle area. A young man had just returned from China. But evidently he was at home, and then they decided to take him to some medical facility and put him in quarantine. But he's not that ill. But he went to his clinic immediately and moved along. Now, some of the other people that have died are elderly people. The doctor that died was 62, but not released any information that he had any illness that would have adversely affected him, except for the virus. Healthcare workers are often hit very, very hard. But this is a Lunar New Year across Asia, and people travel like they do in the U.S., say, for the Thanksgiving holiday season. But you have 1 billion people on the move, totally different type of holiday there. This year, a lot of people in many of these cities, the streets are pretty much cleared. The people that were on it got out and got their food and provisions in, and they are staying home. The food delivery services are doing very well because they're delivering the food, no doubt, with masks on. That's another big debate in China. as to what mask that you use, a face mask that is the best for your particular situation. So we have those kinds of debates going on in China. In the U.S., a demonstration in Jackson, Mississippi, that's the capital of the state of Mississippi. The Parchment, I guess is the name of the prison there. People have been murdered because of the draconian and bestialic conditions that have been at Parchment for a very, very long time. And people are asking now if they just close the place down, literally just close it down. We'll have more on that on the week that was. Later here on the Monday Morning Quarterback, we'll go to Jackson, Mississippi, and see what we can do on that issue. Now let's look at some polling. We have an article here in the Hollywood Reporter from Sundance and the latest from Hillary the Monster Clinton. But before we do that, we'll go to the latest poll out of New Hampshire. This is from a WBUR poll broadcast station in Boston. And this is the headline here. Sanders widens lead in New Hampshire in a new WBUR poll. One of the major polls there. New Hampshire presidential primary less than 3 weeks away. A new poll suggests Bernie Sanders might be peaking at just about right time. This is a survey of 426 likely Democratic primary voters find Sanders in the lead, running well ahead of the three closest competitors: Joe Lunchbox Biden, Mayor Little Petey, and Liz Warren. It's been a good period for Sanders, who has been raising more money than anyone in the race for Democratic presidential nomination. Two polls this week found Sanders and Biden ahead, while a number of polls have Sanders close to her in the lead in Iowa and New Hampshire. It finds Sanders a choice of 29% of likely voters there, well ahead of Mayor Petey, who led the last poll. Mayor Petey is going in the other direction, a Little Petey or whatever he's called. Is now in second place with 17, Biden at 14. And virtual tie there, Liz Warren at 13. And from Steve Kozella, the president of Mass Inc. Polling Group, which conducted a poll, cautioned with almost 3 weeks to go into the primary, much could change. No doubt about that, it very well could. But Bernie at 78 is doing well with younger voters. He has support of 52% of Democrats under 30 years. That includes 29-year-old Elizabeth Hernia, independent from somewhere, Teptenberg, New Hampshire, Borough, New Hampshire. Anyway, these are the numbers here. Now, this was in December of 2019. Bernie had 15% of the vote. Now he has 29%. Little Petey lost a point. He had 18, and now he has 17. Joe Biden had 17, and now he has 14. And Liz Warren just lost a point. She was at 12. Now she's at 13. Amy Klobuchar has doubled her. She's at 6. Tulsi Gabbard is a stranger now, that she still has 5%. Andrew Yang has his 5%. Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, he had 2% in December. Now he's got 1%. And Governor Patrick, Deval Patrick, former governor there, and now he's got 1%. So this is the basic poll there. While the poll is latest evidence of a surge, it also shows overall support for Warren has stalled. Yeah, even with the comment about women being elected, it doesn't appear that it helped Warren at all. Period. Latest poll was conducted just after tension between Warren and Sanders broke into the open. excuse me, Warren took issue with a campaign script that suggested she was only appealing to wealthy and highly educated voters. The new poll finds Warren's strongest support comes from those very voters. And this is the problem Liz Warren has had, that with the comments by Hillary the Monster Clinton did not help her out, and we'll get that connection in a minute here. Then Warren said Sanders told her in 2008 in a meeting that a woman could not be elected president. He denied saying that. I think you called me a liar on national TV. Well, perhaps so and perhaps not, responded before cutting himself off the two parties party without shaking hands. And for Joe Biden, his strongest supports from older voters, leading with voters over 60. Well, that doesn't help Joe Biden that much. According to the poll, Bruton speaks for a large majority of likely Democratic primary voters who favor the impeachment of D.J. Trump and his removal. We need someone in there who has some common sense. He said Biden knows all the leaders, everything, period. Well, yeah. So found that this is the same poll found that a majority of respondents believe Trump made the U.S. less safe, opposed a number of his administrative policy, including the assassination of Soleimani, General Soleimani. It's hardly surprising that Democratic primary voters feel this way, yet the poll found some significant nuances in the opposition there. And we continue to see that voters who approve of the handling of each issue overall. The U.S. economy, 22% approve, and that's 32% of male, 14% of female there. And fighting terrorism, 17% and 24% of the male, 11% of the females. The U.S. military, 14% overall, 18% of the male, 10% there. And the U.S. relationship with China, you usually don't get that, 21% of the males, and 5% of females. Relationships with Iran, 8% overall, 15% of the males. And this is approving of Trump's actions. They have 3% of the females. Relations with Russia, 11% of the males, and 4% there. And if we look at levels of education, high school or less on the economy, they figure what Trump's doing. 26% on terrorism, 25%, 18% on the military, 16% on global trade. Not a big situation there. Relations with China, 17%, 11%, and 7% with Russia. Now, high school, some college, 24%. Doesn't change very much. They approve on the economy. 21% on terrorism, 18% on the military invasion, same as people did not finish high school, if that's any dominant. Anyway, with Russia, 10%, a little higher. And people that graduated, 5%. The relationship with Russia, 8%, and 26% there. The same as high school or less. Those who believe that primarily electors less negative towards Trump, and so forth and so on there. Anyway, for example, he said 93% say they have a negative view of Trump. A third of Democratic male primary voters say they approve of the way the president has managed the economy. And Zeller said these voters represent a significant opportunity for Trump's re-election campaign. Any inroads they can make amongst Democratic base, amongst older voters, older males on the economy could be potentially very consequential. New Hampshire, after all, the swing state, but Hillary Clinton won by in 2006 by very few votes, and no doubt it will be a battleground this year. Well, Hillary Clinton, a little bit different. It could be close. President Obama carried in New Hampshire, but that was President Obama. And you have to look at 2016 as a different year. Many, many things happened there that affected Hillary Clinton's campaign, and we've talked about some of those. Let's continue with the polling here. This is CNN telephone on SSRS, Independent Research Company, interviewed people from the 16th to 19th of December 2020. And this is 1,156 people. Landlines were 430, and mobile phones 726. You get more mobile phones there than before. This is on the 27th here. And how enthusiastic would you say you about voting for president this year's election? And have a little enthusiastic thing here. 29% were very enthusiastic, extremely. 26 very, somewhat 15, and so forth and so on. This is the latest one around. And let's see. How enthusiastic would you say you about voting for president this year's election? Extreme. Oh, and this goes back to 2000. And these are the issues here. We've seen a lot of these polls out. Healthcare, 41% say it's very important. Extremely important. 32 very important, moderately 22. The economy 40% extremely important, 40% very important. And gun policy 39 and 29 very important. Immigration 33 and 25. You can see that's low on the list. Foreign policy 32 and 38 very important. Climate change 30% extremely important and 19 very important. And if you go with Democrats and Democratic leaning types are there, healthcare is extremely important, 55%. Climate change, 50%. Gun policy, 37%. Economy, 32%. Immigration, 32% and 31%. That's extremely very important. For foreign policy, 39%. For healthcare, 33%. Climate change, 27%. Very important. Anyway, and for Republicans, economy, 49%. Extremely important, 38%. Very important. Gun policy 41 and for extremely and 28 very important. Immigration 36 extremely important and 32 very important. Foreign policy 34 and 36. Healthcare 31 very important and extremely important 27. Climate change way down the list for the Republicans 8% and 9%. So you can kind of see where these characters are coming from here. How important for each of the following issues for you to vote for president. We talked about that. Won't spend any time. CNN poll here. Illegal immigration. I can get the general idea where these people are going with immigration and foreign policy. Foreign policy is our climate change a little lower than foreign policy. Global warming. In September 2015, 23%. It was extremely important there. And here's where we get to the rub here. This is the nationwide. I'm going to list people who are running for the primary for president this year. After I read the names, please tell me which candidate you would likely support. And in the latest poll, Bernie Sanders 27%, Joe Lunchbox Biden 24, Liz Warren 14, Little Petey 11, Bloomberg 5, Amy Klobuchar 4, Yang 4, and won't go into the rest of them because they're not around anymore. Long list. And let's see what else we have. Democrats leading independents. The way they're going on this, things have significantly changed since June. Democrat and independents who are registered to vote choose a candidate to support. Would you say you definitely support that candidate? If possible, you might change your mind. Now, definitely at 42%, you might change your mind. 58%, that's pretty high in the same poll. So we don't know. I think the voters are keeping the press looking there. A lot of surveys basically. The minds were sort of made up. And that has happened before with voters. Voters tell pollsters one thing and they actually, well, we just cut away from this. We're not going to mess around with it anymore. Now this is Gallup. This is just the approval ratings. And the reason we selected this, we just wanted to look at this, the Cadillac of polls here. As the Senate trial starts, DJ Trump was at, this is Jeffrey Jones, on the 20th of January at 44%, where old DJ Trump is. 44% of Americans approve of the job he's doing as president. Approval ratings have been in the past three polls between 43 and 45, slightly above the 39 to 41 he's received when the impeachment inquiry started. Now, this is very important here. Has grown, by 3 points. We put the Gallup poll up. You can go to Gallup there. His job approval ratings throughout historic average of 53% for post World War II presidents. Amongst the highest of his president. His personal best is 46%, while the average is 40% for his job. Currently, 87% of Republicans, 37% of independents, and 10% Democrats approve of the job he's doing. And the public against that, this is January 2nd through 15 poll was conducted when the House voted there. 46% of Americans say they would like their senator to vote to convict Trump and remove him from office. Now, 51% want the senator to vote against conviction, so he will remain there. Like his approval rating, the impeachment figures are also sharply divided on partisan lines. 93% of Republicans are opposed to convicting him. 84%. That's not as high as you'd think of Democrats favored doing so. The independents are evenly split. 49 and favor him and 46 oppose it. It's kind of an interesting figure there. Convict, remove, 46% of adults. Not convict, 51%, if it's 5 percentage points there. So the independents there, and Trump from office, remove him. They wanted the same for Bill Clinton after he was impeached. That was in 1998. In several polls conducted in January and early February of 1999, an average of 33% of Americans were in favor of the Senate convicting Clinton and removing him from office, while 63% opposed. A little different for Bill Clinton there. The president's own party is about as opposed to impeachment for Trump as the Democratic Party for Clinton. 7% of Republicans today versus 8% of Democrats in 1999 wanted the Senate to remove the president of their own party. 65% of Republicans wanted Clinton removed, but 84% of Democrats wanted to see Trump ousted. 32% of independents wanted Clinton removed from office, compared with 49% wanting the same for Trump. Slightly higher here. The implications, as in the case of Clinton, the impeachment of Trump has not had a noticeable negative effect on his popular support. In fact, both presidents' impeachment had the opposite effect, increasing their public approval rating. Clinton registered a personal best of 73% immediately after being impeached. His high rating may have also been added by strikes against Iraq that occurred at the same time as the House impeachment vote. Clinton knew how to get the fire in the air. Clinton's approval ratings held mid to high 60s as the Senate tried him. Now, this is different. This was in early 1999. Trump's job approval ratings are nowhere near as high as Clinton's were during his impeachment stage, but they are amongst the best he's registered as president. So he has gained some. Both Clinton and Trump were impeached at a time when the U.S. economy was strong, but Trump is operating in a much more partisan environment than Clinton. The polarization is holding Trump's job approval rating down, especially amongst Democrats and independents. This is the word from Gallup. What time here? Okay, we're doing all right. Debate was, we have an environmental episode coming up with Greta Thunberg. I always have to look at Greta's name to pronounce it correct. The Hollywood Reporter. Jim Lehrer. I think on Jim Lehrer we'll also do a special presentation on him. He was a long-serving anchor with Robert McNeil of the PBS Hour, and he also did the debates. He moderated a dozen presidential debates and wrote novels and plays. He wrote a lot of novels and a lot of plays, very interesting there. But we'll do a special on him because of his long-serving time there. He worked for newspapers in Dallas in the 60s, began his career at PBS in 1970. So he was a different type of person, no doubt about that. Died at 85 there. And let's see, Hillary Clinton here. The monster is back. I think we put it up here. And Hillary Clinton in a full and very new documentary, Trump Regrets and Harsh Words for Bernie. And no one likes him, according to Hillary Clinton. This is on... This is a 4-part series on Hulu, and it's set to premiere at Sundance. Opens up about Monica Lewinsky, her marriage, whether a woman can win the presidency, etc. In the fall, producer Howard T. Owens got a call from famed Washington power broker Robert Burnett. Burnett, longtime client Hillary Clinton, was setting on nearly 2,000 hours of campaign footage and planned to turn it into a documentary. Hulu was already on board to distribute domestically, but would Owen consider producing and selling it abroad? Son of one-time Democratic senator from Connecticut, himself former head of the National Geographic Channel, Owen was immediately interested. He had to woo Senator Clinton and top aide. Abide. He was told, and then with the streamer began piling a list of potential filmmakers. Nanette Bernstein, a political junkie whose resume included the celebrated 2002 Robert Evans documentary "The Kid Stays in the Picture," was his top choice. After a meeting in February, she would be Clinton's also. Still, Bernstein would need ample access to Clinton and her husband, Bill, as well as a complete editorial control. To her relief, she was granted both. So just let her zoom in and whatever she wanted. Confirmed that no subject was off limits, Clinton ended up giving 35 hours of her time and recounting everything with her husband's affair with Monica Lewinsky to election night. They show the two of them standing here together, Hillary. The end result, simply titled Hillary, and largely flattering portrait, even as it delves into the many scandal controversies that ensnagged the 72-year-old. Didn't know she was 72 years old. Anyway, it doesn't matter there. Who take issue with the doc's lack of conservative voices, save Senate bill first. It did not. She and her producer insist, for the lack of trying. Instead, they got no one after the next. We were very shocked. Owens, who blamed the toxic political polarization for not getting more Republican in, while prominently featuring Niva Lewinsky, contributing to an AME docu-series subject at the time. Bernie Sanders and DJ Trump was asked to participate. I don't want to relitigate 2016. Blamed 45 others do, however, including her husband, who holds back tears as he too walked through the Lewinsky chapter, and daughter and childhood friends, etc., etc. And one-time opponent turned boss, Barack Obama. Anyway, there they are sitting here smiling at each other. And there's Hillary Clinton here. A 4-hour docu series will premiere on March the 6th on Hulu. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Against a backdrop of continuous primary season where gender politics is once again the central theme. This is in Park City, Utah, where the project makes its debut on the 25th, Saturday. Coming up here. Maybe we'll have some more on the week that was. and they hope to sell it overseas. In the doc, he brutally honest on Sanders. He was in Congress for years. He's had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to talk. Anyway, I'll just read this. I don't know what I really understood, what I was getting into. We ended up with a 35 minutes there. In the doc, he brutally are honest on Sanders. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He's got nothing done. He was a career politician. It was all just baloney, and I feel so bad that people got suckered into it. That assessment still holds. Yes, it does. Boy, Bernie never got anything done. He was in Congress for years. He had only one senator to support him. Nobody likes him. Well, evidently a lot of people like him. I'm not going to go through that yet. We still have a very vigorous primary season. I would say, however, that not only him, it's the culture around him, his leadership team, his prominent supporters, his online Bernie brothers, their relentless attacks on a lot of his competition, particularly the women. I would really hope people are paying attention to that, because it should be worrisome that he permits this culture. Not only permits it, he seems to really be very much supporting of it. I don't think we want to go down that road again, where the campaign by insults. Well, that's how DJ Trump does it. And to get your distance from that, you either don't know what your campaign supporters are doing, or you just give them a wink and you want to go after Kamala Harris or after Liz Warren. I think that that's a pattern that people should take into account when they make the decision. Speaking of the allegation, he told Liz Warren in 2008 he didn't think a woman could win. He vigorously denied it. Well, number one, I think it's untrue, which we should really say loudly. I did get more votes in the primary by about 4 million, in the general election by about 3 million. I think both the press and the public have to really hold everyone running accountable for what they say and what their campaigns say. Particularly true with what's going on right now with Bernie's campaign, having gone after Elizabeth with very personal attacks on her. Then this argument about whether or not and when he did or didn't say that women couldn't be elected is part of a pattern. If it were one-off, you might say, okay, fine. But he said, I was unqualified. I have a lot more experience than he did. I got a lot more done than he has. But his attack on me. Just think people need to pay attention, because we want to hope we'll elect a president who's going to try to bring us together and not a return a black eye, actually reward the kind of insulting attacks and demeaning and degrading behavior that we see from the current administration. Do you think the media's coverage of the 2020 campaign is improved from 4 years ago? I don't. In the beginning, I was hoping that it had, but I thought that it would. Thought that with more than one woman running, at a point where there were 6, so a basketball team plus a spare, it gets more normal because you have women on the stage. But it's not just me standing alone up there. It's the beginning. There was a reason for hope, but as the campaign is going on, it does seem to me that people are reverting back to stereotypes, and many of those are highly genderized, and it's a shame. Any advice for Warren and Amy Klobuchar if I would win the nomination? I have talked to them. What did you say? I answered their questions. Number one, I talked particularly to everyone who has run and is still running. Assume Bernie not that part. So, all I can say is, but the answer to their questions, I always say to female candidates, look, you can run the best campaign, but you are going to have to even be a better than the best campaign to overcome some of the unfairness that will be directed at you as a woman. No doubt. Whenever you get the nomination, you have to deal with a structured changes that the Republicans and allies have put in your way. So that means that you've got to deal with voter suppression. And I'm glad Hillary recognized that, because they're stealing your votes, so they prevent people from voting. They're now trying to purge voters. They are purging voters. You have got to deal with the theft of your personal information, particularly your emails. And I say to them, if your emails hadn't been stolen yet, they will be. Look what the Russians just did, hacking into the Ukrainian oil company. And then she mentioned dodgy Biden here. And then you've got to worry about propaganda, fake news, made-up stories. Yeah, those have been going around. Look at Willie Horton. It's still hard, very hard. I thought Liz did a good job on the debate. That's the 14th Democratic debate. The only people on the stage who have won every one of these races are Amy and me. I thought it was really clever. Well, it was really clever. But it didn't help Liz Warren. It's only left to be seen if Amy can rise above it. It's really hard to even score 100 when you're trying to negate gender expectations and barriers. Sometimes you really do want to get loose, and then you think, oh great, they'll say, I can't take it. Well, it's some of that, but that does wear off there. The end of the dock strikes, a more hopeful tone, beginning with women marches. You think you talked about not attending. Yeah, I didn't want to be about me. The next day with the marches, I was so empowered. I was texting with everybody, and they were sending me pictures of people wearing T-shirts. Well, okay. We have to fight back. A lot of women who ran in 18, I supported them. They contacted me. They told me they were volunteering for me, and my election motivated them to run. Then in Virginia just passed Equal Rights Amendment, and I see the positive effects there. And of course, but it doesn't last for long. Look, I could have had a perfectly wonderful life without even poking my head into the public arena. But that's how I was raised, both with my faith and my family. I believe that part of the reason we're on this earth is what we can do to make life better and fair and juster. No doubt about that. We all agree there. And is there any place that you consider, any piece of you would consider jumping into a race? I have so many people urge me every day, but I'm grateful for people's confidence and what's happened there. And there's a picture of her and Trump sitting down. She's there debating there. There are some people who just haven't given up on me. I live rent-free in this head. As president, he is better or worse, the same as you anticipated. He's worse. She's talking about DJ Trump. And that is Hillary Clinton's take from the Hollywood Reporter. Incidentally, Greta Thunberg here, Thunberg. Anyway, we see her so we can pronounce the name. But DJ Trump's also attacked her, and we'll have this on an environmental special where we get into this as Vanity Fair. And I know we get Greta up here. That's when she was Person of the Year. And so Trump has a lot of criticisms going on. She was the Time Person of the Year. Greta Thunberg here, Thunberg. Anyway, she is a good person, no doubt about that. And a nice picture of Greta. She was at the World Economic Forum, which has concluded. But we look back upon that, and on the Numbers Man show, we'll have, as we do every year, the World Economic Forum. We have it and present it to the people. So one of the things that we normally do. We'll see you on an extended broadcast of the week that was. That should come tomorrow, hopefully. And then, of course, on Monday morning, we have the Monday Morning Quarterback. these shows really don't overlap, but they do run close together as we've done it. We've done the Friday magazine, Java, This Is It, and then we try to review the week on the week that was and put in some different stories, and we'll do that. We'll go to Mississippi and some other stops in between. And usually on Sundays, as we on Sunday night, Monday morning, we look at the talk shows of what has happened in many of the talk shows. They've been so preoccupied with the impeachment saga. We haven't had things. So what we've done instead of it, we have substituted. We'll tomorrow night we'll probably have Charlie Cook. We're probably 2 episodes of Charlie Cook behind, so there's still time that we'll bring Charlie Cook in, and of course we have Carl Rove. We always usually have him on the week, but we'll get old Carl Rove in there and get that taken care of. But nonetheless, have a good weekend, everyone, and we will see you on the week that was.